Retribution might be a bit shorter than last year's Uprising event, but it's certainly not much easier. So we've collected a series of tips and tactics being used by the players who have topped the leaderboards to put together a guide on how to beat it on the hardest difficulty. First things first, let's talk about the baddies. Troopers are pretty straightforward cannon fodder, but don't underestimate the damage they can do in legendary mode. The best way to deal with them as a group is to flashbang and have Genji dash through while Reaper unloads into their heads. You want to kill them before they can start shooting. If you hit hard enough, they will stagger. Enforcers are like the troopers' big brothers. They're tougher to kill and they hit even harder. Don't get too close unless you have a way to protect yourself. These guys will one-shot you with ease. You'll notice that they have to charge up their weapons before firing, and they will actually drop that charge if they lose line of sight, so peeking in and out of cover is a great way to deal with them. Alternatively, Reaper can time a Wraith form to avoid the damage, or even better, Genji can deflect it back at them. Snipers are the first of the boss type minions. They obviously hit like a truck, and if you get close they will grapple away or pull out a pistol. Genji and McCree are going to be the main source of damage to bring them down, and if you hit her hard enough, she will stagger. Assassins will start up on the walls and they'll hop around before dropping to the ground, at which point they will charge at one of you. The trick here is to use your skills to cancel the charge and leave her confused. Moira does this with Fade, Reaper can do it with Wraith form, and Genji with a dash through her. McCree will need to land a flashbang to protect himself. Flashbang is the key to bringing down an assassin. You can catch her while she's running, or if she lands on an ally, it will stop her attack and leave her frozen for enough time to unleash damage into her. If she does reach a teammate and flashbang isn't an option, hit her with a melee attack. It will knock her off and allow you to unleash as much damage as possible into her. Try to keep close to one another when fighting assassins. Heavies are the biggest of the bad guys that you'll have to face. They have an insane number of hit points that even a fully charged Deadeye won't put much of a dent in. You're going to want to find cover and peek in and out of it. Generally, don't throw ultimates into them as they will all put you in danger. Genji's deflect is the best way to damage him by returning his rounds back at him, and McCree should have no problem landing headshots as you peek in and out of cover. Reaper is obviously the best consistent damage, but getting that damage off without dying can be very risky. You're generally better off watching your team's backs and destroying any other troopers and enforcers while they bring down the boss. These guys do have an aggro mechanic where they will follow one of you and they'll move quite slowly. You can abuse this by pulling them into a building and kiting them around it. Next up, let's talk heroes. Genji's role is mainly to deal bursts of damage to groups with repeated dashes. Troopers will drop easily like this, but you'll have to watch for enforcers who won't stagger and they might instantly kill you. As you move on, your priority will always be to take out snipers whenever they arrive. They don't move once on a perch, so it's easy headshots from range and you've got no damage fall off. Reflect obviously also works wonders. Also make sure you don't run away from your Moira, you're going to need that healing. McCree is your assassin counter. The flashbang is the easiest way to lock her in place that doesn't come at the expense of one of your teammates being jumped on. Learn when the assassins spawn and make sure to have a flashbang at the ready. You'll also be using the flashbang to stun groups of troopers. Outside of that though, you're straight DPS. Use cover to peek in and out. Deadeye can be a little bit tricky to use as you need to maintain line of sight for so long, but in certain areas where there's a lot of distance it can be very useful to take out groups coming in by boat. Moira is obviously the key to survival. You only want to be dealing damage to replenish your healing resource, but make sure to let your team know if you're getting low so that they can let you farm it from a trooper. The most important thing for Moira is to avoid the team taking unnecessary deaths. Each time someone dies, it makes it take longer to revive them the next time. Players will almost certainly die at some point, but you want to avoid it as much as possible. Don't underestimate the damage of Talon soldiers. You're going to need to be pumping out that healing and keeping yourself from becoming the focus of their attacks. Also keep in mind that when you use your ultimate it disables the use of Fade, so using it when snipers and assassins are nearby isn't generally advisable unless absolutely necessary. Reaper can pump out lots of damage against individuals. You should be trying to prioritise enforcers when fighting in groups, as you can Wraith form to avoid their shots and kill them fast due to their large size. His ultimate is essentially a self-heal when fighting a group of troopers. It's pretty terrible against most of the bosses as they would just kill you through it, or you could deal more damage by just landing headshots. So instead, use it when fighting a group of troopers to wipe them out quickly while also recovering health if you're dying. Wraith form is also the best way to resurrect someone. In the first room you're in there are two rules: don't use your ultimates and don't die. There is no reason for either at this stage. The Talon soldiers will spawn in one of three locations at the time, either left, right or middle. Work as a group to bring them down. Be aware that when the group drops in the middle, they will also be coming in from another door. As you leave the hall, you want to stay as a group, Clear one side first and then the other. After the sniper cutscene, keep out of her sight and kill the others first. Then Genji can aggro her, reflect the shot, while everyone else helps finish her off. Down to the docks, keep your range, and use McCree's Deadeye to kill as many as possible as they come in from the boats. Then the dropships will appear with a delivery of more units. You're probably going to be best off fighting them normally. Use cover and range to your advantage. A sniper will also appear during this fight, so let Genji aggro her and reflect her shot back, and then burst her down. While the sniper is alive, make sure you all have cover. In the next room, make sure you clear the whole area, including the upper floor. A dropship is about to come in, and 2 snipers will spawn on that perch on the other side. You can do this either the fast way or the slow way. The fast way sees Genji dash, cast his ultimate and dash again to reach the snipers and lay into them with Dragon Blade. Reaper can also go using his teleport, but to do this you're going to have to move fast. If you don't move quickly enough, you're going to need to stick back in the room and avoid the sniper's line of sight until you take care of everyone else. Then you can take down the snipers. Next is the first assassin and a load of soldiers. You can try and avoid the smaller units while dealing with the assassin, but like I described earlier, you can deal with her fairly easily using your movement skills, flashbang and then bursting her down as a group. Just watch out that you don't get picked off by a trooper. Next up we have the first heavy. You want to kite him back into the courtyard area and run him around one of the houses, using cover to your advantage. Genji's deflect will be the main source of damage, while McCree should do what he can, but don't take any risks. Play it quite passively and safe, and make sure that you take out any soldiers that arrive either at range with McCree or Genji, or Reaper if they get in close. When the heavy charges, he will hit a wall and will be stunned for a few moments. This will give Reaper a chance to unload into him. When he recovers, just Wraith form away. The next room is much the same as the courtyard, with a load of troopers and the assassin. On to the final battle, and this is a more intense version of everything that we just covered. There are a few different ways to do this, but playing the back balcony and room can be very effective. There's plenty of cover available and predictable routes that the enemies will have to walk through. Eventually 2 heavies will spawn, one shortly before the other. Use deflects and cover to deal as much damage as possible. Have Reaper dealing with any soldiers who get in close, and McCree can always use the flashbang if things get hairy. The ideal situation is to kill the first one around the time that the second is dropping in. If you're deflecting all of his shots on cooldown, this should be doable. If you do end up fighting both of them at the same time, you're going to need to try and kite them so that they're close together. This makes deflects even stronger. If anyone dies, take your time to kite the heavy into somewhere safe before going for the res. Also note that revive is often glitched and will let you res them through walls, and if they die on the balcony or in the area around that, you can often revive them from underneath. When the ship arrives, it's time to get out of there as quickly as possible and not waste all of your hard work by dying, but if you're going for a high score, killing some additional units at this point will give you a boost. However, make sure you discuss that with your team before going on the mission. So these are some of the techniques being used by the players who have topped the leaderboards, but do you have anything else to add? Let me know in the comments below. As always, this is James for Cass, saying thanks for watching, and enjoy the game.